give you this moment right now. Empty me and fill us with you. So come, Holy Ghost, our souls inspire, and lighten with celestial fire. Amen.
Amen.
To the pastor of this house, Reverend Solomon McCauley, I'm grateful for the opportunity and the invitation. And I'm even more grateful for his words earlier. We've traveled this church for a while now, and not often do you meet people who you can authentically just connect with on an instant. And so the same that he has said is my agreement as once we first met. So I appreciate that and his invitation here today to you all, this wonderful Zion Hill. I've not been in Zion Hill in a while. I remember one year my pastor came up and I think he did revival here. So it's been a while, but it is good to be back in this place.
Amen.
Turn with me, if you will, to a very familiar text. I won't be before you long, I promise you that. I know your pastor is not a long-winded preacher, and I'm not either, so I promise I won't hold you between you and your meal. But turn with me, if you will, to a very familiar text, Luke chapter 22, verses, and I'll only be reading verses 31 and 32. Again, that's Luke chapter 2, verses 31 and 32. And it reads as this. And the Lord said, Simon, Simon, indeed Satan has asked for you, that he may sift you as wheat. But I have prayed for you that your faith should not fail. And when you have returned to me, strengthen your brothers. Is that what your Bible says?
Yes, chapter 22.
Amen. For the time that is mine, I just want to preach from the subject, too much to lose.
Amen.
Too much to lose. I read an article recently on challenges and even dangers of those who are involved in ministry in this day and age. The article talked about a pastor who had a congregation where the median age of the congregant was 32 and the average age of the joiner was 29. And in that setting and in that context, the article suggests, and I agree, is what has developed in the modern day church is a theology of selfishness and individualism, where everyone is coming to church and while you're being admonished to touch your neighbor, you really don't care much about your neighbor. We're living in a day of theology that is all about, I come to church to get mine, and you better get yours, to the extent that we have lost the accountability and responsibility of communal concern. We have lost what is responsibility to be my brother and sister's keeper. Now I get mine, and you better do the best you can to get whatever you need. But when you read this text and when you understand the very nature of how God did everything, God right from the beginning suggested by which the manner he created us that everything is interconnected and related. And God does things by relationships, by interconnectedness, by community. And Jesus, again, in this particular passage, gives us another example of the responsibility of community. Now, from a cursory reading of it, you would think that this is just Jesus giving Simon Peter a warning that the devil is coming after him. If you only do a cursory reading of this story, you may walk away thinking that this was just Jesus kind of giving Simon Peter a forewarning of what the devil was trying to do, which is take him out. But when you put the text in the context of the text, you will discover that Jesus is up to something much bigger. In the context of the text, they are sitting around what we call the Lord's table. They have been inside the upper room in the Lord's Supper, and this supper that represents community, this supper that represents communion, this supper that represents oneness. And if you were to read the verses prior to the one I read for you, they are in a discussion void of Jesus about who has next. Read it when you get home, read it when you get home. But they know that Jesus is on his way out. Jesus is headed to Calvary. And they know that Jesus is about to take leave of them. And they're all wondering who's going to be next. Who's going to be the top dog? Who's going to be the person in charge? Because Jesus, after all, Jesus has not put in a succession plan. After all, Jesus has not hired an apprentice, and no one knows who has next. And as often as it happens, whenever your priority is power, you always cancel community. Whenever your priority is who is in charge, you will always find yourself diluting your responsibility for your assignment. Wow. Jesus peeps what they're doing, and he begins to warn them about not being like the Pharisees and not being like the Gentiles who laud authority over them, but they are so busy trying to figure out who's going to be the power that they don't even hear what Jesus is saying. Don't miss it. They are sitting around the table that represents community. They are sitting around a table that represents unity. They are sitting around the table that represents oneness, but their argument has the potential to cancel their community. So Jesus takes this opportunity to put out a warning about what they're doing around the table, and he says, Simon, Simon, Satan has asked for you to sift you as wheat. But I have prayed for you. Well, now you're quiet because it sounds like I haven't said much, but if you were to read this text in its original translation, you will discover that when Jesus uses the word you, he uses two different Greek words. He uses a singular and a plural. Here's what Jesus says. Here's what he says. He says, Simon, Simon, Satan has asked for y'all. To sift y'all as wheat, but I have prayed for you. Come back. Simon, Simon, Satan has asked for y'all to sift all of you as wheat, but I have prayed for you. Okay, one more time. Simon, Simon, Satan has asked for y'all to sift all of you as wheat. But I didn't pray for all of you. I only prayed for you. Now, I know your pastor is a very smart man, and so he preaches smart messages to the congregation, but the question has to be asked, if Satan is after everybody, why does Jesus only pray for one somebody? I had to ask the question, if Satan is after y'all, then why is Jesus only praying for you? Because the reason is Jesus named Peter the rock. He's the one that's the strong one. He's the one that's the powerful one. He's the one that has more sense than everybody else. And Jesus says, Simon, I'm praying for you because when the devil comes after y'all, you'll be the one to get up first. And after you get up, I need you to go back and get everybody else who did not get up as quick as you did. He says, Simon, you've got to keep it together because watch this. If the devil gets you, he gets y'all. He says, Simon, you got to keep it together because you got too much to lose. So I need you to get yourself together because if he gets you, he'll mess up everything. And that's my simple Sunday morning word for some husband, for some father, for some mother, for some pastor, for somebody in leadership, that the devil is after everybody under your accountability, but Jesus is holding you responsible for getting yourself together and covering everybody else. This word is not just for men and women, but it's for everyone who has a responsibility. So that leader, that employer, that entrepreneur, you need to know this morning that if there is anybody under the purview of your influence, the devil tries to take you out so he can take y'all out. Because if he gets you, he'll get y'all. But I dare you to look at somebody and say, I've got too much to lose. I can't let the devil have my family. I can't let the devil have my ministry. I can't let him have my church. I can't let him have my friendships. And I'm going to get myself together so that he can take us all down. Very quickly, let me show you three things in the text that'll help you, both Simon and Simone, that'll get you to help you to get yourself together when the devil comes after you. Here's the first thing. The text is tailored to teach us. Don't allow your old person to mess up your new purpose. Don't allow your old person to mess up your new purpose.
One more time. One more time.
I don't care how long you've been saved. I don't care how many scriptures you can quote. I don't care if you know Hebrew and Greek and you can have the best systematic theology. You could have been in the church for 4 generations and your family has a mark on the outside of the church. There is an old you. And here's the struggle we have is that when I get saved, my old you didn't disappear. My old you simply is under subjection to my new you. But the challenge is my old you knows tricks that my new you doesn't know.
Wow.
And there is in all of us some stuff that we would like some stuff that we like that we should not like, and that's simply the nature of temptation. Temptation suggests that there is something that is put in front of you that gives you the option to say yes when you should say no. And the thing about the devil is that he customizes temptation so that he doesn't put in front of you that which doesn't make you weak. That's why you got to be very careful about how you talk about people and their situations, because the only reason you don't have that situation is because that's not your weakness. And Jesus trips me out because Jesus does something that contradicts his own commandments. Watch it. He says, Simon, Simon. Stop right there. I have a problem with what Jesus says. He says, Simon, Simon. Okay, let me show you. You remember when Jesus took a survey and said, he asked his disciples, who do men say that I am? And then some said that you're Elijah, some say that you're Jeremiah, or one of the other prophets. And Jesus said, that's cool, but who do you say that I am? And Peter being the one who was bold enough, spoke up. He said that you are the Christ, Son of the living God. And remember, Jesus said, blessed art thou, Simon, Simon Bar-Jonah, son of Jonah, for flesh and blood did not reveal that to you, but my Father in heaven. And in one of the versions, Jesus said, and you no longer shall be called Simon. Okay, y'all missed it. Jesus says, you shall no longer be called Simon. You shall be called Petros. He calls Peter the rock. So I got a problem because Jesus in this story now calls him by the very name he said don't call him by. I don't know if Jesus has just forgotten or if he has gotten some sense of amnesia, but he's the one who said don't call him Simon, and then turns around and calls him by the very name he said don't call him by. And I said, Jesus, I need just a little bit of help because you said don't call him Simon, to call him Peter. And Peter means rock. Peter represents the person that can hear divine revelation. And Peter represents the person who has spiritual insight. Why are you calling him Simon? And Jesus said, that's the point. I don't need to talk to Peter. I need to talk to Simon because I need to let Peter know that I don't care how strong he is, there is still some Simon left in him. You can sit here and look cute this morning all you want to, but if somebody catches you on the wrong day, at the wrong time, and says the wrong thing, there is still some Simon left in you. So ask me how I know, but and there's some Simon left in all of us, and I know I'm right about it, but the devil has a way of pushing our Simonic buttons. He has a way of trying to get under your Simonic skin. But here's the good news of the text. Here's the good news of the text is that Jesus is praying for the Simon in you. Do you know why that should have blessed you? Because people put your Simon on Facebook. People put your Simon on Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat. People put your Simon in the blogs. But thank God that Jesus knows that we're going to mess up and he doesn't kick us out or disqualify us, but he prays us through the weak moments of your journey. And somebody ought to rejoice that the only reason I didn't cuss them out is because Jesus was praying for me. The only reason I didn't go back to my old ways is because Jesus was praying for me. He's praying for you. He's praying for you. But don't let your old person mess up your new purpose. Simon, be careful to not let your old person mess up your new purpose. But let's not keep it too long. Let's keep it long with the text. Second thing the text is able to teach us is that God will give divine permission for demonic design. There are moments where God will give divine permission for satanic purpose. Okay, let me prove to you. Job chapter 1, the sons and the daughters came in the presence of God, and Satan came amongst them. And can I pull over for just a moment if I promise to keep the motor running?
Yes, sir.
Because what that suggests, y'all ain't gonna like this, is that you can never come into a holy moment without satanic presence.
That's right.
Just look straight ahead, don't turn to your left or to your right, don't start nothing up in here. But Satan is always in the midst. So y'all know the story. God says to Satan, where have you been? And Satan says, just hither and thither, to and fro. That's my translation. Just here and there, to and fro, seeking who I may devour. And God says, oh, you don't have anyone? You don't know anybody, says God. And Satan responds, I don't have anyone. Can I pull over just for another moment?
Go ahead.
The good news in that text is Jesus asked Satan, you don't know anybody. Satan responds, I don't have anybody.
Yeah.
In other words, I know some people, but I just can't get them. Okay, y'all catch that when I get home. But God says, have you ever considered my servant Job? He's faithful, he's committed, he has integrity. And Satan says, yeah, but you got a hedge around him. I promise this will be the last time I pull over and keep the motor running. But the very word that Satan uses suggests something that we ought to celebrate. The only way that Satan would know that there's a hedge around Job is if he's been trying to get to Job but couldn't get to him. See, we spend so much time whining over what the devil does to us. We ought to be celebrating the times that he came after us and you never found out about it, because when he came, God said you're protected. So God says, I'm putting Job on the betting table. Have your way with just a few restrictions. Don't miss that. God gave the devil permission to mess with Job. And you see it again right here in the text, but it's a shout. Watch it. He says, Simon, Simon, Satan has asked for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Simon, Simon, Satan has asked for you. He cannot just show up. He cannot just bully his way in. The only way that the devil can get into your life if he has a permission slip from the desk of the Almighty. And if God gave him permission, it's because he's already equipped you with everything you need to get the victory. There isn't one struggle that you have in your life that God already hasn't made you ready for. So anything that shows up in your life, you need to face it knowing that God gave the devil a yes, and God gave you the power to get the victory. And so there is nothing that the devil can do that does not go through God. And I can't argue the things of why good things happen to bad people. I can't adequately give you the answer for what theologians call theodicy. But what I do know is that the devil always has to play on the playground of God's sovereignty. Wow. That no matter what the devil does, God will only let him go so far. An old Baptist preacher would say that the devil is just a dog on a leash. He can't go as far as the leash will let him because the master put him on the leash. But there is, no matter what happens, God will only let him go so far. Instead of always trying to get the answer as to why God is letting some things happen, why don't we learn to rest in the reality that no matter what happens, God will see me through, because he's already given me enough faith to handle what comes after. Whatever the devil brings my way, God has already equipped me to handle it. Can I prove it into the text? It says, Simon, Simon, Satan has asked for y'all to sift y'all as wheat, but I have prayed for you that your faith not fail. He says, Simon, what I'm praying for, watch this, is the faith I've taught you. Don't fail you when the battle comes. Simon, the devil will try so hard to make you forget what you already know. So my prayer is that when it gets rough, that your faith will stand up and you'll remember what you already know. And that's why coming to church and coming to Bible study is so important, because that's where you're getting your faith strengthened. So when the devil comes your way, he isn't after your money. He doesn't need it. He isn't after your family. He don't want it. He ain't after your job. He's after your faith. Because if he can get your faith, he'll get your worship. And if he can get your worship, he'll get you. And your prayer every day ought not to be, God, give me a new house. Your prayer ought not to be, God, give me a new car. Bless me with a boo. Bless me with a babe. Your prayer ought to be, God, let my faith stay strong. When the battle starts raging, let my faith stand up. When the devil is on my heels, let my faith stand up.
Yes.
Reverend, I was struggling with some things in this text, and actually dealing with this text a couple of weeks ago, and I called a friend of mine who helped me with something, and it's the phrase "faith not fail." The phrase "faith not fail" is ekaipo in the Greek, and ekaipo is the Greek word from where we get the English word eclipse. Now you know what an eclipse is. An eclipse is when the moon shows up and blocks the sun. And now it doesn't erase the sun, it doesn't make the sun just disappear, but it blocks the sun. And it doesn't push the sun out of the way, it just gets in front of the sun so you don't get the effects of the sun. What Jesus is saying is, when I'm praying for you, it's nothing but an eclipse. And the grace of my moon blocks the sun of the devil's intent. And do y'all want to know why you survived stuff for so long in your life? God blocked it. You want to know why you made it through so many struggles in your life? It's because God blocked it. Do you want to know how you didn't lose your mind in the midst of unemployment? God blocked it. And I wish I had somebody this morning who can just say, God, I thank you that when Jesus prayed for me, you brought the eclipse that blocked out the devil's intent. I've told you two things so far. Don't let your old person mess up your new purpose. I don't care how much Peter you are, there's still some Simon left in you. God will give a divine permission for demonic design, but understand he's already equipped you with everything you need to get the victory. But the third and final thing that the text is tailored to teach us is that God provides the answer before Satan ever presents the problem. God provides the answer before Satan ever presents the problem. And it's so simple in this text, but I missed it the first couple of times. And it's just one word. Can I show it to you? It says, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan has asked that he may sift you as wheat. But I have prayed for you that your faith not fail. And when? Not if, not a hope, but when you return. He said, the devil is coming to get you, but I need you to know that before he shows up, that I've already told you you're going to bounce back. Isn't that good news for somebody this morning? Now don't miss it, because scholars suggest